Hello, everybody. This is Alyssa Tracy. I am Director of International Trade for the MEDC. And joining me today is Holly Henriksen, Director of International Sales for the Bohning Company. Today, we're going to provide some information on Michigan's State Trade Expansion Program, or MISTEP, and how it can help companies grow internationally, companies like the Bohning Company. If you have any questions for us or comments throughout the chat today, feel free to be a part of the discussion, join us, and put those comments or questions in the chat box. And we'll be sure to answer as many of those as we can throughout our discussion today. Holly, let's start off talking about the Bohning Company. Can you give us a little bit of an overview about the work that you and your team do? And maybe start with telling us a little bit about how the company was founded.
Sure. So we produce components for arrows, like for bow and arrows. We're actually celebrating our 75th anniversary this year. We were founded by Mr. Roland Bohning in 1946, he was an avid archer, and by trade he was a chemist, and he saw a problem with the points not gluing to the arrow shafts. So he used his expertise and came up with a better adhesive, and we've kind of taken that same strategy over the years and expanded into a few other local industries. We just try to make things that work better for people.
That's great. I love the Michigan ingenuity there.
Yeah.
Now, where is your company located?
So we are about a 30-minute drive northeast of Lake City, Michigan, which is about right, which way are you guys facing? About right here on the map. So, and that's where we've been located the whole time. That's where he set up shop. It was at his family's hunting camp, I believe. So we're pretty proud to still be locally owned and operated. It's still a family business, and we employ about 50 people in the local area.
Awesome. Thanks, Holly. Now, your company has utilized the MISTEP program, the grant program, to support your growth into international markets. Yeah. Before we get into some of the work that your team has done with our team on the international trade side, I thought we'd get a little bit more background on your Made in Michigan history, okay, and what your role is in international sales.
Okay, well, I guess my role is more of in the archery part of things, it's more promotion. We have been pretty strongly represented internationally for decades. So my main job is to look at what areas we have more growth potential within the markets that we have, and then to promote that and continue relationships with existing customers and find new customers. And that's what, we have about 2,000 different SKUs. So there's a lot of different things to look at when we're looking at market growth potential.
I can imagine. So you have utilized the MISTEP grant for a few different purposes. And that's one thing that we want to make other companies aware of, is that it's not just, this MISTEP grant is not just a one and done. Right. There's multiple uses of these grant dollars, up to $15,000 a year, to tap into, to help support a wide range of activities that, any company might be conducting to either initially establish or grow some of that international sales activity. Can you talk to us a little bit more about some of the uses that your company has had for the MISTEP grant program?
Sure. I think we've applied and received this grant every year for the 8 years that I've been working here. So it has really, it's been clutch for some of our international growth. Even before I was hired in at Bohning, we have a consumer and dealer trade show in France that we go to every year. And just to kind of make our travel dollars stretch a little bit more, we would always conduct customer visits in conjunction with that trade show. So once we started receiving the MISTEP grant, to cover a big chunk of the trade show, we were able to, we stretched that budget a little bit more, and we were able to conduct additional customer visits, and really grow those relationships, which are very important. So that's kind of the continuing industries that were already pretty strongly represented in. And then an example of like entering a new market. So we recently came out with a product that is in what's for us a new industry. So I used the MEDC grant for a lot of U.S. Department of Commerce research to figure out which countries are we going to be best suited for. And some of those answers were good and some were not good. Say, okay, this country is not, a potential for us, but that still saved me countless hours of research, and the cost was, I think, under $500. So it's a no-brainer to do that. And then establishing potential customer contacts as well through the Gold Key service has been really clutch. And that
our partners at U.S. Commercial Service are critical in helping us deliver some of these really needed export services, evaluation of markets, and it's just as valuable, I think, to learn where you're not competitive than where you may be competitive. Like you said, saves you a bunch of time and I'm sure a lot of headaches in evaluating some of those markets.
Yep. And we didn't know about those resources before we had, got in contact with the MEDC. So that was a big part. One of the more perhaps interesting things that we're working on right now is we're working through the MEDC for a grant for a new website to get sales into China. So exporting from the US to China. And that has kind of a pretty long backstory, which also started with a different MEDC grant. Our CEO, Larry Griffith, was conducting some business travel, some customer visits through the Asia Pacific, partially funded through the MISTEP grant several years ago. And during those customer visits, he started seeing some products that had our name on it, but that were clearly not ours. So we identified that there was some counterfeit product coming out of China, which our customers had no idea was not authentic, and they didn't know. So a few years later, a lot of legal resources and time invested. Our CEO was able to conduct some police raids with the Chinese police and shut down some of that counterfeiting. And from that point, we learned that a lot of that counterfeit product was actually staying within China. We thought it was all being, shipped back to the US or to other markets. But so that kind of clued us in that, hey, there's a market for our products within China. Fast forward a couple another years and established a physical presence there. And that's why we're now working with IBT Online and the MEDC to get our brand more recognized online in China. So,
well, I don't think it gets more high drama.
Right. One of the more interesting stories,
Right. But that's a really unique and roundabout, I guess, is the understatement of the year.
Yeah.
Roundabout way of discovering that you had market potential in China. So tell us, once you realized that you might have some potential there, how did you confidently start to enter that market?
Well, the U.S. Department of Commerce, the market research was a component of that. And actually, we're doing a little bit more at this point to figure out what are the differences between the archery market there and within the U.S. or internationally? Are they doing it just as a hobby? Is it like a competitive, a passion? Are there any bow hunters out there? And where are they going to learn about their information? As I'm sure the online world in China is not the same as what it is in the US. So there is certainly a big learning curve for us, but has really helped to have the information and the monetary resources of the MEDC and the US Department of Commerce. So.
Right. And so positioning your company to market to online consumers that are online in China, you're tapping into IBT Online, which is a big partner of the MEDC. And one of our partners whose services are offset by the MISTEP grant program.
Yep.
So 75% of your costs associated with IBT services can be offset, up to $8,000 a year. That's our annual cap for services related to website localization and such. So and digital marketing. And we actually, I'd like to learn a little bit more about just how you got involved with IBT Online. Was it something that that your team realized that you needed? Was it coaching from one of your MEDC business resources through the International Trade Manager? How did you find out about this opportunity, and what made you take that jump to take advantage of that?
Sure. I think it was originally from some emails. IBT has a lot of great resources that kind of tells you about the online community in any country you can think of. So obviously, in the past 2 years, we've not done any international trade shows. So we were looking at, well, what's the best way to reach out to our consumers and dealers and distributors and stay in touch, make sure we're keeping our brand like in the forefront. So one thing sort of led to another. We had initially thought to get some localized website for the German and French markets, and then we kind of did a left turn and decided to go with the Chinese market instead for this year. But the European markets are on the docket for next year instead. So, Andrew is one of the IBT contacts that I've been working with, and it's been really great, just like walking us through the process and things that we're not necessarily very familiar or comfortable with, and making sure we feel comfortable. And with the 75% reimbursement, it's kind of a no-brainer.
Right. And
the cost is minimal on this. So
good. Well, we've been really fortunate with IBT. I mean, of course, our grant program specifically for website localization and even e-commerce, that cap is $10,000 a year. For marketing media, that goes to $8,000 a year. But we have a really great program with IBT that offers companies a much lower rate, subsidized by MEDC, to take advantage of some of these, one website or two website solutions to, make that micro version of your website that's translated and easily found in some of those markets that you're looking to target. So I'm so glad that you're able to take advantage of those. What is, I guess, your company's, your biggest markets that you've seen, over the past, throughout the company's, 75-year history? How have those international markets changed over the pandemic? Have you been, looking at China more or less, Europe more or less? The pandemic changed things for everyone, and I'm sure your company has seen some significant changes as well.
Yeah, the U.S. was our strongest growing market during the pandemic, and that just North America, I'd say, so U.S. and Canada, and that really is just because archery overseas is more focused on competition, and those were canceled basically, whereas archery in North America is kind of a lot of people getting together like in their backyards and shooting or going hunting, which we saw with all of the outdoor sporting goods industries. Really, they shot up in sales, so it was no exception for us.
Yeah, well, thank you. And I know you've taken advantage of the MISTEP grant program for a few different uses, so trade shows, website localization, e-commerce, and you've also taken part of our partner resources, U.S. Commercial Service. So we're happy to see a company like yours that is Michigan born, Michigan grown, and tapping into these resources to grow awareness and sales of your company at really a global scale. I appreciate all the time that you've spent with us today, and appreciate everyone for joining us and this discussion. So if you would like to learn more about the MISTEP grant program, you can go on the link right here. Sorry, I'm not sure if this is working. You can go to the link to learn more about how you can tap into up to $15,000 a year to grow your international sales, reach new markets, and in addition to these grant dollars, definitely talk to your international trade manager and take advantage of the partner resources that we have available, like Holly mentioned. So, Holly, any last thoughts you want to share on going global with our audience today?
I would say don't be afraid. You have a lot of resources at your disposal, and go for it.
Awesome. Thank you so much. I didn't see any questions come through, so I appreciate everyone coming in today, spending about 15 minutes with us. Have a wonderful rest of your day. Holly, as always, thank you so much for being such a great partner and a wonderful person to support. So hope everyone has a great
you
day.
guys too.